first.
Dude, I guess one of the nice things about us not doing it last week is you got quite the list of things to talk about.
I do.
I was thinking earlier, I was like, man, I better bring Cody some stuff. I don't want to put all the pressure on him. And then the day just kind of got away from me. Of course, I sit down here and you have a whole fucking Harry Potter novel of things to talk about.
Well, I like to be ready. And since we left them without one last week, welcome to episode 19 of the Twin Towers podcast. We're back. The streak is over. I'm sure you noticed. Maybe you didn't. It was good while it lasted. Takes a lot of pressure off us, in my opinion. And you know what? I was thinking of how to navigate around this and how to kind of posture it to the fans. Why we took a week off. And I'm just going to be honest with them. I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to tell them exactly why. I really could not get myself together after Mike Evans and Chris Godwin went down in the same game against the Ravens to do a podcast. With everything that we've gone through on this show, people leaving, people coming in, friendship dissolving, you never hear from your best friend again, that really didn't affect anything. We were able to plow forward. But with the two top offensive players on the Tampa Bay Bucks going down in the same week, that was so devastating that I just couldn't get it together. And I hope you understand. We took a bye week, and I think it's going to be good for us moving forward because now that the streak has evaporated, we don't have to worry about that anymore. There's no pressure to do this every single week. If there's a bad week, if something comes up personally, if we feel like we don't have a lot to say, we can take a week off. All will be fine. We've seen it with our own eyes. So with that being said, I would like to welcome back Eamon to the show for number 19. And what's up with you, buddy?
I'm just happy to be back, and I think you set a good precedent. If you're just doing it every week, you're just doing it to kind of check a box. If you're just doing it when you have shit to say, I think that's more impactful. That's something I always tell people at work. I was like, when you're making these sales calls, I want it to be with purpose. I don't want it to you just to do it, just to say you did it, because that doesn't help anybody.
Exactly. So with purpose, with intention, we're back here this week to give the fans what they want. It made me wonder, if anyone would even notice we were gone. I got a few people asking about it, but at the end of the day, we do this for fun. We do this because we enjoy it, and as long as we're continuing to do that, I think that that's okay. I think it's getting the monkey off your back, letting that week go by. It was kind of nice, actually, to get a little break, recharge, refuel, re-energize. Here we are today, so where do we begin?
Well, I'm going to ask you a question. I got my hair cut. I'm sure many of you noticed that the hair looks shorter than it did a couple weeks ago. For those chopping at home. So I was getting my hair cut today, and they were talking about how they went out on Hurdle for Halloween. Mm-hmm. And typically for me, Halloween is like so fun. Like I really go after it. I really try to get an innovative, creative costume that no one else is doing. Right. And I just soak it all in. This year, it kind of just like went by. I know Halloween technically doesn't happen, but the weekend before Halloween, like when most of the parties would happen.
Parties, yeah.
And I think I would have been depressed about it in the past, but this year I was just like completely fine. I was like, I'm just going to hang out. I'm going to watch football. I'm going to text some of my friends during the games, and that's it. And it was like the first time in my life where I was like, I'm genuinely content not doing something fun for a holiday that I typically enjoy. And the guys who were cutting my hair, they're a little bit younger than me, and they were making jokes that, like, after they left, they felt like they should have left in a wheelchair and smoking a pipe. And I figured it was an old joke, but I was like, well, what do you specifically mean by that? They said, well, we're 28 and 29, and it felt like we were the oldest people there by a mile. People were just obnoxious. He's like, it's wall-to-wall people. You have to wait eons for a drink. He's like, it's
Where
not
were
nice.
They went out in
on
Buffalo?
Hurdle.
Okay,
yeah,
on
which,
Hurdle.
it's a fun spot, but, like, it did kind of bring up to me, like, man, shit, like, I love going out to celebrate, but, like, when you have to wait 30 minutes for a drink and it's shoulder to shoulder people and you can't hear what you have to say, I was like, a full of me is glad I didn't do it. But the reason I ask you, are you a guy who really gets into Halloween, or is that something, since you don't have kids, you don't have nieces and nephews, you don't really care?
Correct. I mean, there was a time when we were younger, when I would go all out, put a nice costume together. There's always something to do. I feel like a lot of time we go to your place, actually, and hang out in that neighborhood for the most part on Halloween. But as time has gone by, it's become kind of a nothing holiday. I think it probably won't be important or have precedence again until I have kids. If that's to happen, that will kind of re-energize all the holidays, and that will be exciting and fun. For now, I mean, I don't give a fuck, to be honest with you. I got invited to a Halloween party yesterday, but being that it was my first day off, in a few days, I was beat, so I didn't feel like going up to Buffalo and partying. Plus, I didn't really have a costume. I hate when people go to Halloween parties without a fucking costume.
It says a lot about a person.
Drives me nuts, so I didn't want to be that guy, and yeah, I skipped it. And then, on Thursday, I doubt there'll be anything going on that I'll be a part of, so I'll probably just kick it at home, watch the Thursday night game, and call it a day. Like I said, having kids will kind of give that a shot of energy and make it exciting again. But for me, at 33, being single, I don't even think anyone will trick or treat around here. I hope they don't, because I'm not going to be ready for them. Yeah, it's one of those things that's just kind of, it's on the calendar, but I don't really give a fuck.
I don't think I articulated this super well, and I think the best parallel is New Year's. I always felt for the longest time like this is the biggest party day. You absolutely have to do something, and pretty much anything I was going to do was not going to meet those expectations, and the pressure itself would drive me nuts, almost to the point where like I hated it because I always felt like I could be doing something different. And Halloween was that to like a little bit smaller of a scale. And like I said, this year, like I didn't feel any pressure. Part of me forgot about it until someone brought it up, and I was like, maybe this is actual growth and maturing, not feeling like you're missing out. And I have the same feeling it's going to be like that the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. When you're in college, like that was just an awesome time. You got to see all your friends from high school that you hadn't seen in a couple months.
Biggest party night of the year.
Very important that you take advantage of it because there's only so many opportunities to see these people. In the last couple of years, like it's been pretty mild for me, and I've been pretty content about it. And I like to think that that's a good thing because a lot of times in my life I haven't been content and I've had serious FOMO, and kind of realize like the spot you're in is a place you want to be. Like that's such a fulfilling feeling.
Well, it kind of comes back to what we had already said before about doing the podcast. It's like you don't want to be trying to do something and trying to make something happen just for the fuck of it, just because it's that date on the calendar. Like, there's this pressure to celebrate Halloween. There's this pressure to go out and do something crazy on New Year's or the day before Thanksgiving. But if it doesn't happen, I mean, whatever. Like, if you really want to actually have fun that night and you're into it, that's cool. But just doing it just because, I mean, it's kind of a facade in that way, It's not really worth it.
It's all an expectation thing, too. And this is, like, painfully obvious with age, but I didn't always realize at the time. Like, my happiest times were, like, when I had zero expectations and I just went and let loose and didn't necessarily care. Like, when you would hype something up, whether it be a party, a date, a game, even if it was a really good time, it usually paled in comparison to what your expectations were, which was always super unfair. And that's, I think, one of the beautiful things is just letting go of expectations, and then things tend to happen even better. Because here's the thing, like, even if something is a great time, if your expectations are even higher than it, it's automatically not going to be a great experience.
Sure. I wish someone would kind of, I don't know, take the reins and be the spot. Like if we had someone in our circle that was like the guy who had a Halloween party or a Christmas shindig or something like that. I mean, we kind of got something going for Christmas with the Madden tournament and that's kind of a cool thing. But it'd be cool if someone stepped up and kind of held it down. I'm not really in a position to do that right now. I would love to be that guy, but that would be nice. But yeah, I mean, the older I get, I don't really worry about it too much. It's just kind of whatever. It's unfortunate, but I think that when you reach a certain age and the mystique wears off of the holidays, that's when it's time to kind of pass it to the next generation. And unless you have the next generation available to pass it to, you're kind of shit out of luck. You just got to kind of deal with it. So,
does it ever bother you? And I know we're kind of going on a tangent, and we'll get back to the script. Like the age, like, we're 33 years old now, and you ever feel like a certain point of my life has already passed me by, and I'll never get back to that, or is that not something you typically think about?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it fucking freaks me out, actually, because honestly, I don't really feel like I just always assumed that when I was 33 that things were going to change. I'd feel differently about life. I would be into different shit. Things would have progressed kind of naturally, but that doesn't necessarily happen. And I don't know, as the years continue to add up, it kind of fucking freaks me out because I just wonder, I don't know, there's, like you mentioned with pressure and shit like that, there's like pressure to be an adult and pressure to move up in the world and kind of progress and things like that. And if it doesn't happen, it just doesn't. Like, it doesn't happen automatically. You actually have to make it happen. So, yeah, I think about time and age a lot and get fucking freaked out about that. But at the end of the day, I can't really change anything that's happened thus far. I just have to try and do better moving forward. You know what I mean? So no, it is what it is.
I'm with you. And for the longest time, like when people are like, oh, your 20s are the best time of your life. And like I was like, oh, those times are already gone. And now I'm like, older and all those fun, crazy times are gone. But the reality of the situation is, like, when I think about people in their 20s, and my mom said this and it really resonated with me, like, everyone's a fucking mess in their 20s. Mm-hmm. They have no idea what they want to do. They're worried about their career. They're worried if they ever are going to get married. They're worried. They're constantly comparing to where their friends are in life. Oh, this person already has kids and is already married. Like, they're clearly further along. And the one thing I would always tell people is, because I did get married and have kids, it's like, just because you look good in a family photo, it seems like you have your shit together, those are some of the most miserable people in the world. Like, when I was married and had kids and had quote unquote like the traditional family, like, this isn't anyone's fault but mine, I'd say, but I was fucking miserable. Once I got divorced and my life looked a little chaotic, that's when I really started to figure shit out in my life, and I started to find fulfillment and happiness. So comparing yourself to other people and based on societal expectations, I think, is the worst thing in the world. And between my friends in my 30s and just girls I've dated in their 30s, those are people who have far more interesting and compelling stories and have a better idea of where they are. And sometimes they're able to laugh about their misfortune. And I feel like some of their pressure is off because they realize that life isn't all about these societal expectations of you need to be at certain checkpoints.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned just the idea of presenting an image or looking good in a photo or whatever. It's really odd to me. It flips me out how much precedence people from our generation or beyond kind of put on that, how important that is to certain people, that you have the right photos or the right aesthetic quality to your life. I mentioned this in the group, but one of the biggest annoyances of mine or pet peeves of mine is if I'm talking to a girl or whatever, I know eventually this question's going to come up. It inevitably always does, but it's, what's your Instagram? Whatever, like, are you on Instagram? Because I know that they want to scope me out and make sure that I'm checking all those boxes in that department, and I really don't. It's not something that I care about, but it's weird how I've always found that very odd, how you can be talking to someone one-on-one. You could ask them any question you want. I mean, they're communicating with you directly, but you'd actually rather look at their profile and make sure that they have it together on an app or whatever the case may be. It's fucking weird as shit. I hate when people ask me that, and it happens literally every single time. And I always have to then explain the whole scenario. Well, I don't really use it, and I haven't posted on there in a while, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just a weird thing that, like, we have to worry about that people before us didn't even have to consider.
When you say talking to one-on-one, you don't mean physically in the flesh, you mean like online?
Either way. I mean, I've had it happen where I'll be talking to a girl in real life, and having a real conversation. She's looking at my face, and she'll ask me for my Instagram handle. It's like, what the fuck? It's like, I mean, anything you want to know, I'll answer your questions, whatever. You're talking to me right now, but, like, it's more important for you to make sure that I do a good job posting and shit like that. It's like, fuck that. I don't really want any part of that, which is kind of why I checked myself out of the game in the first place.
You know what? Like, I mean, I've been dating someone for 3 months now. We don't follow each other on Instagram, and I feel like Instagram and even social media in general, it doesn't always paint the person in a good light. And I'll give you an example. There's a couple of people I work with who are absolutely awesome coworkers. I've been out, had beers with them, but if I only knew them through the lens of social media, I think they're fucking crazy. But that's not the experience that I have with them, and I try to think of how many people that I connect with on social media that I have these ideas of what they're like, and they're nothing like it at all. I think it's a lot easier to complain on social media because you don't have a person in front of you kind of refuting that or seeing their reaction when you say something cringe. And like, it's we're about to have an election, and I don't really care who people want to vote for, but I do think when you consistently have the same posts and the same stories that are so political and so snarky towards the other party, it is extremely annoying, and I don't think you would necessarily get those in person.
Definitely. I mean, I wouldn't want someone that I'm interested in to even know about my profile or see my shit, because I use that shit for fucking around with people and mainly for trolling and Bucks fandom, and I don't know. It's just like, I would much rather just keep it in a vacuum of what we talk about and have real conversations than have them see that side of me, because also, like, I just know how that goes. Like, I know that if I give that information up, they're gonna go through and see shit that's years old, and they're gonna. It's just stupid. That's just a shitty way to come to a conclusion about a person. It's like shit that you see on there from 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Like, you really aren't even supposed to see. Like, you're supposed to know me from this point forward, and that should be it. So, like, I would rather do it like you said, where you don't even follow each other on there, and you don't, I mean, let them do their thing and you do your thing, and keep the interaction to what's between the two of you is ideal for me. But it's kind of a weird thing to suggest in the climate that we live in.
Well, I think there's two reasons for it. I think the one reason is to verify you're an actual person.
Sure.
And a couple years ago, I had matched with somebody, and I was off all social media at that point. I just thought it'd be better for my mental health. And the fact that she couldn't find me on any social media, she just automatically assumed I was a catfish. So I was like, maybe this is for any other reason, just have social media so they can actually verify I'm a real person. But the other thing I was going to say is, like, when does that story ever have a happy ending and you're more impressed with the person after looking at their social media? Like, I literally cannot think of any instance where it was a coworker or someone I met at a bar or whatever, where I looked at their social media and I thought of them in a more positive light. They're either just don't put a lot on there and you stay neutral, or they're obnoxious with it and constantly putting stuff there, and then you view them less favorably. I don't know why you would ever think that's going to give you a better representation of that person looking on there.
Well, right, because when you're interacting with someone in a one-on-one situation, you're directing the energy towards that person. When you post on social media, it's kind of like to an unknown audience. Like, you don't really, at least for me, that's how it goes. Like, I don't care about the people who I know are going to see it, because anyone who actually knows me talks to me on the reg, individually or in a group chat or whatever the case may be. So that's all kind of just for fucking around, right? So like you said, it's not going to necessarily represent even your real desires, emotions, or whatever the case may be. It's just kind of a persona almost that you kind of present to the world. And I don't know, dude. I just don't really like it. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't like the idea that someone's asking for that, and then when I give it to them, then they're like going through all my old shit and like coming up with this idea of like who I am and whatever. And then it feels like this weird pressure where, like, since I don't use it a lot, then it's like, well, why doesn't he use it? And what's the deal? Like, he should be up on that. I don't know. It makes me really uncomfortable. I wish that they didn't ask, but I understand why they're asking for it.
And here's the other thing too, is like, you'll never know like what your friends and followers on social media even think of what you said, because 99% of it, there's so much fluff and stuff in there that they're also going to see. Like, unless you said something absolutely hilarious and a couple people are responding like, oh, that cracked me up, like, I don't know like really what you're gonna get out of it. Like, when the Lakers win a game and I post a story, Lakers won, like, what am I really telling? Like, no one, I don't think, actually cares. And maybe that's not why people have social media, is to get attention, but just, I always wonder, like, what is the actual purpose of what I'm about to do? The only time I think I can justify it was it's a picture of my kids, but even then, like, people don't care. Like, when someone else who I'm a cousin with or friends with posts something of their kids, like, it's not like I spend time looking at it and like think about how awesome life with their kids. It's just like, oh, that's cute that they're doing something with their kids, and that's kind of it.
Right. I don't know. I guess in a way I've kind of lost the plot with the whole thing. And like we've said before on here, I mean, nobody cares as much as you do about your own bullshit. So at the end of the day, it's not really a huge deal. It's just something that kind of drives me nuts, because it does happen every single time, and I just wait for it. It's like the ticking time bomb to when that question's going to come up, and then I just always feel like I have to explain it, and it's just annoying. I should just delete it and then say, I don't do that shit.
I mean, that could be attractive too, because it's like, oh, this guy like actually has focuses and passions in life, and it's not social media. But like that quote you just said about people not giving a shit, like, I think the one thing that really captured it for me is like, you'll stop caring what people think of you when you realize how little they actually do.
Yeah, it's very true. That's what's kind of allowed me to kind of let loose and just be stupid on there, is because I don't know. It doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't matter. And I think about how I react when I watch people's stories or whatever. Like, I don't really think about it. I just kind of click through it. I see it for 2 seconds and then it's out of my mind. Like, when you do something, you think it's like this big deal and that everyone's going to see it and everyone like noticed it and whatever. But really, it's really not. Like, it's just kind of a passing, fleeting thing.
Well, think about our friend group. When somebody does something crazy on Instagram, I don't mean our friends, but somebody outside the friend group, when it gets passed around in our group, it's never for a positive reason. It's never like, dude, did you see how funny this person... You might see a clip online that was hilarious, but we don't have a personal connection to that person.
Right, generally.
But it's only like when this person like is clearly losing their fucking mind. Like, I don't know why they're talking about killing their ex in this social media story.
Right.
Like, what a nut job.
It's usually always bad or something that would be embarrassing, and, for that reason, I want it to kind of stick around, because I do like taking a peek at that stuff and making fun of people.
It's good to see other people struggling.
Absolutely. So I wanted to ask you about this because you kind of have inspired me in a certain way. I know that you've been in a, could you call it a relationship? I think you probably could, right?
I mean, if you ask her, probably. No, I'm kidding. I guess I would call it a relationship. I mean, it's just a term at this point. I don't know, like, where's the line?
Fair enough, but it's someone who lives across the border. So I wanted to just ask, this has been going on for a number of months now, right? 2 months, maybe 3 months?
About 3.
What it would have been for you, I guess, the biggest challenges in making something like that work? Because for me, I've always kind of just ruled people out that are across the border, even though they might live, like let's say someone lived in Syracuse, which is 3 hours away. If they live in Canada, that 3 hours away across the border, that seems like a monumental jump that just can't happen. But really, crossing the border isn't that hard. So I'm curious to know, over the past 3 months, what you've found in your experience has been the hardest things maybe to overcome, or even the benefits of said distance and having that border.
Yeah, so I will tell you, like, I was like you for a while. I was like, if the person's in Canada, that's a whole other country. There's like a huge border that you have to know a secret passcode to get through, because I hadn't been to Canada in a while.
Sure.
And then, like, the first time I went, I was like, wait, that's it? The first time I'd went in a while. That was it, and it wasn't a bad drive. But to kind of tee this off, I had matched with someone online, and at first, like, we were just playfully flirting back and forth, and it was a lot of, like, fun, creative stuff. And I was like, this person, like, even if I never have interest in them, like, I've enjoyed this conversation where they've made me laugh. They're clearly insightful. They're clear and entertaining person. We had already kind of established that rapport, and we realized the distance. Like, oh shit, this is a little further than I realized. And we had just kept talking for a couple weeks, and I felt like, there's no pressure. Like, I'm enjoying talking to this person. Like, worst case scenario, I just had a couple fun weeks of playful banter. And then, like, we had FaceTimed a couple times, and, like, there was some chemistry there. There was a lot of mutual attraction, and it was a lot more than I had realized, especially with somebody so early on.
Right.
And I was a little thrown off. But then part of me was like, you only feel this way because you know it's a challenge and you know it's not realistic. And then at one night, she had texted me, and she had said, obviously I want to meet, but I'm just worried that we're setting ourselves up for failure. And I said, that's perfectly fine, but
Fair.
Next time you're with somebody and you roll over in the bed and you ask what's wrong, just make sure you tell them that you're thinking about me. And I
Wow.
she laughed about
That's
it.
interesting.
But then I was like, in all seriousness, I kind of want to see how it plays out. And I said, I don't want to have this thing hanging over my head, like what would have happened if I pursued that, and I don't want that to carry into the next relationship. I'd rather meet up one time and it be a fucking disaster and me never think about it again, than just not do it and then, like, carry that into, I wonder what this person's doing. So FaceTimed a couple more times, and then I drove up to see her, stayed a weekend with her, and, like, honestly, it was, like, probably the most fun I'd ever had with somebody, and it blew away my expectations. And I was more just like, am I just getting wrapped up in this moment because it's something new, or is it someone entertaining? And just the communication continued, like, with FaceTime every single night. I've been up there probably 5 or 6 times, and, like, when I go, it's not like, hey, let's just get dinner. Like, I end up staying for 2 or 3 nights.
Well, you might as well, because you're making the trip, so it's like it almost is conducive to that sort of thing.
And honestly, it's kind of perfect for me at this point in my life. The girls are getting a little older, but they're still dependent on me to a large degree, being a single dad. So it's somebody I see maybe 7, 8 times out of the month, but we're able to live our separate lives. I'm able to do stuff with the friends. It's able to stay pretty fresh too, because it's not like we're coming home together every single night. Oh, how was your day? How was your day? And then we watch Netflix and go to sleep.
Right.
Like, things are still fun and exciting. Don't get me wrong, there's challenges. There'd be times, like, after I'm drinking out at a bar, like, I wish this person could come visit me, but at this point in my life, like, it makes a lot of sense. Now, does that mean that there's not going to be decisions down the road that may be made? Maybe, but we're not at that bridge yet, and I try not to stress myself out about something that isn't relevant at this point.
Well, right, and you don't want to worry about that too early. There's always the kind of hanging question in the air of, like, well, where is this going to? What are we moving towards? Because ultimately, you would think that if things were to work out in such a way that you probably will have to close that gap at some point on some level, you would think, after enough time has gone by, after you guys are in a situation where you could do that. But I think, like you said, it's pretty important to keep in mind that there's really no point to try and fix what isn't broken. If you guys have established something that's working and you guys are both cool with the arrangement, I think that's a pretty cool thing. Just to put this out there, I'm kind of in the early formative stages of something similar. and wouldn't probably have even approached this with the gusto and optimism that I would have had I not known about your situation. I think ultimately I'm going to have to probably FaceTime. I've been asked to do so already. You have to,
man.
Yeah.
You don't want to visit someone without FaceTime them.
Sure.
It's not even specifically for you thinking you're wasting your time, but I think it also makes the woman far more comfortable. You got to think, like, when you're going on a date with a woman, she's worried about you kidnapping. She's worried about you being a rapist. She's worried about you harming you.
That's fucked up. I mean, but it's true, yes.
The worst thing you're worried about, like I say this jokingly, but it's also true, is that, like, she doesn't look like her pictures.
Correct.
Like, you're not worried about getting kidnapped or murdered.
That's kind of the worst case scenario, yeah. So it's higher stakes for them. I understand that. So you do have to make a concession.
But I'll tell you what, like, anytime I've FaceTimed probably 2 or 3 girls, and it wasn't something I had done before,
right.
And I just realized, like, this saves us a lot of time. Like, I'm not getting in there wondering, like, how I connect with this person or if I'm even physically attracted to them. And you can just save each other time, and honestly, like, it makes the girl more comfortable. There's a possibility you always get blown off if your only communication is text. Like, once you establish a rapport of talking on the phone and FaceTiming, like, it's another level. And quite frankly, a lot of guys are too scared to do that. So you kind of set yourself apart.
Well, it is a little uncomfortable. I don't know what it is about FaceTime that just bugs me for some reason. I don't mind being on camera here or whatever, but there's definitely like I don't know.
There's a vulnerability to it.
Yeah,
it's right up in your face, too.
Because you can't really escape. Like, it's like you kind of just... You got to be quick and you got to do a good job, right? I mean,
it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, you don't have to overthink it and think I have to be absolutely on my A game. I mean, I think most people are understanding. Here's the thing: if they're FaceTiming you, there has to be some baseline of interest already, right?
Sure, that makes sense. It's something that's going to have to happen. I've already excused my way out of it a couple times. It's going to have to happen.
Why not tonight?
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, maybe a 6-pack might help, but we'll see. I think that it just kind of makes me think about just like this almost untapped resource above the border. It's like there's these this pool of girls that's probably better than American chick. I mean, American girls kind of suck, right? They're kind of spoiled. They're shitheads. Without
any exceptions, there's none. They're all fit into one
bucket.
They
all think that they're Taylor Swift or Beyonce, and they're just shitheads. So, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of nice being this close geographically to this free agent pool of people that's from a different nation completely. I'm excited about it. Like I
mean, what do you have to lose?
Like, I have nothing to lose. Yes, I have absolutely nothing to lose. So yeah, I mean, I'm cool with it. It's just funny because honestly, genuinely, this wouldn't have even happened to get to this point if it wasn't for your situation. So, I mean, you've really had an impact on me in a big way.
Well, I think the one thing that I really took away from my situation, and this isn't even just for dating, but it opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. Like, sometimes you don't know where something's going to go, and you got to stay open to it. Like, I can't tell you how many times, like, someone has asked me to do something, like, I don't really know if I want to. And then I do it, and it ends up being fun. And it's the same thing here. We could have easily said, like, why are we wasting our time? We're an hour and a half away apart. Like, this is never going to work. And we test it out. And here's the thing. Even if it ends a month from now, like, I still have a lot of good stories. And I still, like, It's like, hey, I actually did do a really good job connecting with someone who's, like, very attractive, very intelligent, and, like, has a lot going for them. And it was, I don't want to say it was an ego boost, but it kind of, like, reaffirmed some things that I always wasn't super confident. Like, no, you know what? You are a good catch. And I think it's easy to people to beat yourself up, like, if things are not going well in life, and sometimes it can be nice to have somebody there to remind you, like, no, you actually have a lot going for you, even if things aren't perfect right now.
I agree. I commend you for doing what you had to do, making it work with everything that you got on the table, and I hope that things continue to go well. I'll certainly keep you updated on in my court, see how things go.
Stop pushing it off, though, because I think you're just... Here's the thing, though.
It's getting close. It's going to happen.
I know, and I know, like, you're a little nervous about it as much as, like,
I am nervous.
But you have nothing to lose. But the thing is, if you keep pushing it off, you're probably going to push her away and her to get suspicious.
Yeah.
And trust me, that first 5-10 minutes may be awkward as fuck. I don't think you should drink personally, but if you need to do it to go off the edge...
I won't say
But, like,
I did.
once you get past that, like, initial 5 to 10 minutes, like, it's fine. Like, it's not a big deal. And the fact that she wants to FaceTime and keeps bringing it up, like, tells me you're not chasing her. Like, she's genuinely interested in what you have to say.
Well, I'll say I don't know how much I can say. I don't intend on showing her I don't know if you've showed her the podcast yet. Probably not.
I've brought it up.
I brought it up as well.
We just saw so many other things we talked about that it kind of gets swept under the rug.
Correct. So, she has a kid, 15-year-old though, and I feel like that's an age I can relate to. Like, I don't remember being 3, 4, 5, 6. I do remember being 15. And plus, that's almost a grown man at that time. I mean, he's got shit going on in his own life. I don't really see that as a challenge per se. And it, like we've talked about before, kind of shows that she's responsible on a certain level. It's not something I'm really worried about.
There's a major benefit to that too. And this I guess could be a negative for you too, but someone who already has kids doesn't necessarily feel that pressure and think, oh, I'm never going to have kids, or desperately want to have kids with you. Like, she may already not want to do it, and she just wants somebody she can enjoy the next 10, 15, whatever years with, where if you have somebody who's all her friends have kids and she doesn't, she may be feeling pressure from her family, and they're maybe like, hey, my clock is ticking.
True.
When I dated a girl for a couple times about a year and a half ago, she was 2 years older than me. I was 31 at the time, 32. She was 33, 34. She kept saying, like, this is my timeline. I have to get married by this time. I have to have kids at this point, or I'll never have kids. And it was like the biggest fucking turnoff in the world. It's like, you're just using me as a vehicle. You're not actually interested in me.
Yeah, too much pressure. So yeah, box is already checked. Hopefully by podcast 20, the FaceTime session will have already happened. I'll keep you guys updated.
It better. If you have nothing to fucking lose,
I'll do it. We're going to talk some NFL. We got to do that. I have to piss viciously. I'm going to piss my pants soon. I'm going to hand the ball to you. I want you to maybe go into whatever you want, I guess, but maybe how the AFC is panning out, things that have happened over the past 2 weeks, injuries, so on and so forth. You can take the ball and run with it. I will be back in 30 seconds.
I will take the ball. We will start timing him right now. So it's kind of interesting to me. I've obviously am a huge college and NFL fan, and both my teams are absolutely atrocious this year. So I really haven't had a lot of stake in worrying about games that affect the Titans. For example, the Titans are never going to make the playoffs in this, so I can just enjoy it as a fan and not worry about how it affects the Titans. And honestly, as a neutral fan who doesn't have a dog in the fight, I'm loving seeing what the Chiefs are doing, the Ravens are doing, the Bills and the Texans are doing. 4 legit teams who I all think could make a Super Bowl run, and all of them are adding reinforcements to make it interesting. The Chiefs just added DeAndre Hopkins. The Bills added Amari Cooper. The Ravens added Deontay Johnson. Like, this really is everybody's getting their top guy and getting ready to roll. And, like, I think the playoffs are going to be awesome. And like I said, it doesn't affect the Titans, so I can just watch as a neutral fan and not have to root for a certain team to lose.
It's going to get interesting. AFC teams are definitely loading up. On the flip side of that, Stephon Diggs is out for the season, which is unfortunate. He was having a pretty good season, and the Texans lose kind of a key piece that they were adding to kind of retool and load up for a playoff run. But yeah, with the Ravens, Chiefs, and Bills all adding talent at receiver, the Chiefs added a linebacker also from the Patriots. I don't know how good he really is.
Inconsequential. He's just a depth piece.
Fair enough. Big game this week. Another Monday night challenge for the Buccaneers against the Chiefs. I would love to see them hang the first L on Kansas City. I know they've shown some weakness and vulnerability. I don't think the Bucs are ready for that challenge, especially being so thin at wide receiver. But with that being said, the way I look at it right now is probably the Chiefs are the best. I would put the Ravens ahead of the Bills just because of the head-to-head matchup and because of the firepower that they have. Then I would probably slide the Bills in above the Texans, even though the Texans won that game. It was by last-second field goal. And then the Texans, but you got 4 strong teams there, and that's not even including the Steelers, who are also 6-2, with Russell Wilson looking quite nice. The Broncos are 5-3. I mean, there's a lot of surprises that could come up. I don't suspect that the Browns will be a force. However, with Jameis being the starter for the future and having just beat the Ravens, who are one of the top teams, who knows what could happen? I mean, there's a lot up in the air right now. It's an exciting time. And then on the flip side, in the NFC, the Vikings have kind of taken a bit of a fall. The NFC North looks really strong with the Lions, Packers, and Bears in addition to them. The Falcons, I think, are a good team, and I think it's wide open right now. I think the Chiefs are still kind of the consensus number one, and certainly seeing them add. Hopkins is older, but it's still, you know that when he goes to a system like Kansas City's, that he's going to get plugged in and used, correctly, probably make a difference for the most part. They're still the team to beat. I don't think Tampa Bay can get it done. I'd like to see them do it, but yeah, man, it's fucking wide open. I think the Bills are right in the mix, and I think they added Cooper at the right time.
Yeah, so as much as like the Chiefs are undefeated and they're quote unquote one in everyone's power rankings, is there a part of you that actually wants to see them three-peat or go undefeated just for history's sake? Like, let's just say the Bucs were eliminated from playing the rest of the year. Like, I'm a big storyline guy. Like, I love when there's a college basketball team going undefeated into the playoff. And like, I would just love for our generation to say, hey, we saw an undefeated team, or we saw a team three-peat just for history's sake.
Yeah, I mean, I think even when you go back to New England's, dynasty runs, they never won 3 in a row, right? They always
no team has ever done it.
Right, so it would be a new kind of cool thing to see. I think they're certainly ready to do that. I would imagine that's their aspirations, and they definitely are in a position where they're probably going to get a chance to do that. But it'll also be interesting to see, just because they're the top dog. They've won it twice in a row, and they're coming out of the gate undefeated right now and are probably going to stay that way. I mean, the team that knocks them off, if that's to happen in the playoffs, is probably going to be the team that wins it all, or at least makes it to the Super Bowl on the AFC side of things. So I think it could go either way. Like, I do get a little fatigued by seeing the same team over and over, but at the same time, being that we've never seen that happen, it would be a cool thing to see, and I think we might see it happen. So,
well, that's the one thing I've always talked to you guys about. Like, I like the champion to feel like it's an actual representation of that season. Like, I don't want it to be some team who was 9-8 in the regular season and just happened to string off like 4 awesome playoff games, because it almost feels like, well, this season the champion didn't make any sense. That clearly wasn't the best team.
Right.
It's like seeing 2 awesome teams in the Super Bowl, like a 16-1 team versus a 14-3. Like, that feels like we have the best 2 teams. I don't like it when it feels like 2 random teams who happen to play one good month of football are squaring off, because it doesn't feel like that was a full representation of the season.
Right. You want it to be the best 2 teams. I mean, right now it would be the Chiefs versus the Lions, or whatever the case would be.
It'd be a great game.
It would be a great game, and I don't think they play during the regular season, so who knows? Maybe that's how it'll turn out. I think the one thing that might be a criticism, it's not their fault by any means, but if you could poke holes in the Bills right now, it would just be that they really don't have strong wins or a strong resume. I think I don't even know if they've beaten a team with a winning record. I think their main good win is against Arizona, who's 4-4 randomly. But they have a tough stretch of games coming up with the Chiefs and the 49ers. I know the 49ers record's not great, but I still look at them as a strong team, especially because they're getting Christian McCaffrey back. So, I mean, they're going to be tested. They got the Dolphins this week, which should be an easy W, obviously. Dolphins are kind of in shambles, and their division is ass. I mean, let's be honest.
It's probably the worst in football.
Absolutely. So they should coast to a win, but I think that with having a couple tough games on the dock, I mean, the Seahawks aren't a bad team, and they handled them with flying colors. So that was a big win. They actually might have a winning record, so that might go against everything I just said. But that was a big win, and they look like they're just getting better. So I don't think there's going to be any challenge for the AFC East crown. I think it's just a matter of who are they going to match up with in the playoffs, who's going to have home field, and who's going to be hot at that time. I think Tyler made a great point earlier. Who's healthy, really, because that's such a huge factor. I mean, the Bucs were on pace to probably win the division, probably be a force in the playoffs, and now their whole season's up in flames pretty much because you got Evans down, Godwin down. They're pretty much fucked because they're in the meat of their schedule right now. So, yeah, a couple bad injuries and you could be completely fucked. Assuming one of these teams in the AFC stays healthy, it'll be interesting. But when you throw the Steelers in the mix too, I don't really know. I don't really know what to predict. My heart says to go with the Chiefs. I think they're the obvious pick. But there's a lot of teams vying for that spot, and I think things are going to get real interesting as we move into the second half of the season.
And we're going to have a lot more data points to realize that as teams play each other. Like, it's all cool now, but it's only been 7 or 8 games, and that's not a full sample size.
Right.
So, like, what we think now may be completely different 2 months from now.
Absolutely. I mean, time will tell. There's some big games on the docket, a couple big matchups. I know the Packers play the Lions this week, I believe. Chiefs-Bucks, even with the Bucks being where they are, is a good matchup to kind of see where each team's at. I know the Chiefs are going to eventually lose. I don't see them going undefeated, but when is that going to happen? I hope it's on Monday night. I don't think it will be, but time will tell. So we'll see. Outside of that, the other big thing going on right now is obviously with the election. Things are heating up. It's almost November, so I know the election, I think, is in the first week of November, if I'm not mistaken.
The 5th, I want to say.
I'm the last guy to ask about anything political, but I saw that Trump was on Rogan, and I saw that Kamala, or how do you say?
I still can't pronounce her name
I don't know how
either.
you say her name, but she was going to be on Rogan, but he didn't want to do it outside of Austin, Texas, and he didn't want to do it for only an hour. So he pretty much rebuked her, offering of doing it, which people were making a big deal out of because he's just a podcaster and she's the VP of the US, which is the, big fucking powerhouse of the free world. So it's just been interesting watching.
Where's the flack coming? Towards him or towards her?
Mostly towards him from what I saw for, exuding diva behavior and not acquiescing to her demands.
It's his show.
Yeah, I mean, fuck it. He can do what he wants. Plus, who he supports. So, I mean, he's not going to go out of his way. It'd be cool to see both of them get the same platform. It's so weird that we're in the point in life in society where, like, the Joe Rogan experience is, like, the top, like, media thing that, like, a presidential candidate can do. But it's heating up. You saw Joey Bosa. Was it Joey or Nick who plays for San Fran? Joey.
Nick. I'm sorry.
Nick wear the MAGA hat and photobomb the Sunday Night Football post game. I thought that was kind of nuts, just because I can't believe that someone would even be willing to throw themselves in the line of fire like that. But I guess with everything heating up so much, that's the type of passion that it's evoking. I really don't give a shit. I'm kind of a sideline spectator. On one hand, it'd be cool to see like the first woman president, I guess, maybe, sort of. On the other hand, like Trump, I know that he's a loose cannon, so there's going to be some entertaining shit if he wins, and I really don't have a pulse on what's going to happen, and I don't plan on voting, so I'm not really the best person to ask for this, but it'd be silly to not at least recognize
I
that's
just
what's going on.
love how every 4 years, this is the most important election of our lifetime.
Always.
It's just like every game's a must-win game. Like, yeah, maybe this one is different than other ones. I don't really follow it that closely, but I also don't think it's going to drastically change our lives too much. I will add the caveat that I'm a white, straight male, so it's possible that whoever was president was never going to impact me. That doesn't mean it won't impact others, so I want to make sure I say that.
Sure.
And there probably is an element where I probably should more be invested because it could affect people I know and love. But it's not something that I particularly care about because I know New York State is going to vote Harris either way.
100%.
And quite frankly, I'm not super impressed with either candidate based on what I do briefly know.
Yeah, me neither.
But I also don't think you're a horrible human being if you vote one way and a complete idiot if you vote the other way. And I think Trump can be kind of an embarrassment as a guy. Like, he's certainly not somebody I want to defend as a person. But I think there's people who vote for him who just like his policies, and I don't think you need to be demonized for doing that. And I also don't think you're a snowflake if you vote for Harris. My thing is, like, there's a line in the sand here. I just feel like just because you vote for one person doesn't agree with every single policy they have. Like, you're allowed to pick and choose between both of them, and I just wish that it wasn't so polarizing.
I agree. I mean, there could be a situation like maybe your main thing is like taxes, or maybe your main thing is gay marriage. That's going to be the thing that draws you to whatever candidate, and it's probably going to land you on either of the sides in that line in the sand. So, I mean, how heated up and emotional people get about it is crazy to me. Certainly, from a personal perspective, I'm a lot more concerned about what Tampa's going to do with their wide receiver room than how this election's going to play out, and that's just the way it is.
And it's fair to feel that way. Like, people are like, oh, it's just a game. It's like, but it's not just a game to me.
No, not at all. It's more than just a game, for sure. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't think it's going to change our lives that much. I really don't think it's as important as they're going to blow it up to be. But without having really a clue on which way it's leaning right now, I don't know. It'll be kind of cool to see how that plays out, and that'll be something that we obviously have to comment on moving forward.
I mean, I think the only thing I genuinely like about election season is watching some of the people lose their mind on social media, like how passionate they get. And I always think what you're posting on social media, like, you're probably only alienating people. There's not many people who read this and think, oh, what a down-to-earth, reasonable, smart guy. It's like, what the fuck is the matter with this person?
Absolutely. A lot of people are exposing themselves as crazy, unhinged nutcases, really. And it's weird to see, because a lot of times it's people that I would think outside of politics are pretty rational, easygoing people, but for some reason this issue is just, a hot button thing that they think it's all on the line this year. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna say something controversial, but it's something I actually deeply feel about. I don't like if I'm passionate about a sport and people try to minimize, like, oh, this is just a game, there's other people's lives on the line. Like, while I'm always of the belief that I never want to vote for something that harms people and doesn't benefit me, because I feel like you're just being a cynical asshole at that point. There's also there's political issues that, like, I don't think I need to care about. Like, I don't need to be invested in every single one. I'm all for, like, making people's lives better, especially if it doesn't inconvenience me. Like, gay marriage, like, dude, marry whoever you want. Like, it's not like I lose my right to get married by that. But I also think, like, you getting shamed because you don't care about an issue is really fucking annoying.
It's bullshit. I think that just people... good is good if it's good for me, and they think that the shit that they're into is the most important, and they can't fathom how you couldn't be into it. But I mean, it's a lot less stressful not being plugged into this whole thing. I mean, there's nothing on the line for me. It doesn't matter what happens, and I don't want to sound as if I'm just that I don't give a fuck, but ultimately, I really don't give a fuck. I mean,
it's so nuanced.
It's out of my hands, too. Like, it doesn't really matter. I can't do it when you know that you can't do anything about it, and there's no action I could take that would influence or change anything anyway. I mean, how many people have you seen that either watch a debate or read a post on Facebook or see a certain thing, and then they actually jump sides and change who they're voting for? I don't know if I've ever seen that in my life.
When they don't search for information, they search for affirmation or confirmation.
That corroborates how they already feel about it. Exactly.
And here's the other thing, like, there's so much nuance to this, and I'll give you, this is probably a cheeseball example, but, like, when people are voting against women's reproductive rights, like, yes, I think I don't feel comfortable telling a woman what to do with her body. Like, I don't think it's really a man's place. But the same token, like, I don't think they're doing it just because they hate women and want to see women suffer. And I've heard people say, well, these guys just hate women and view them as inferior. Like, I think there's probably a religious component to it. And like I said, like, a woman could do whatever she wants with their body. Not my place. But I think if they're making those laws, I don't think it's just because they hate women. They may, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's specifically to spite women. They probably have deeper beliefs on it, even if we don't agree with it.
Well, people generally tend to take things personally, even if they're not meant to be. I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing, and I watched something recently, Patrice clip on Tough Crowd, that kind of pointed out a few things that I thought were interesting. I don't necessarily agree, but it is interesting how let's say you're in a situation where you want to have a kid and the father is against having that kid. I mean, when the baby comes out, it's technically half and half. But if someone doesn't want to be involved, I mean, should they legally be mandated to have that kid? Also, furthermore, to another degree, when you are a woman who becomes pregnant, I know they're very quick to say it's my body, my decision, my responsibility, so on and so forth. But is it entirely your body at that point? Because really, there's another body inside of you. And I know that this is kind of a weird thing to even bring up, a weird line to even possibly cross, but I mean, the way he said it, and I didn't come up with this, but it's like you're the apartment for that baby. Like, you didn't choose to be the one that could have kids, and there's another living being inside of you. So for you to be the only one that makes a decision on whether it's born, but not have to be the only one who supports it or facilitates it growing up in a healthy, loving, financially responsible way, I mean, there's shades of gray to that, I feel like, and I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, it's something I'm not informed enough to talk about, and so like I don't really have a strong opinion on it. Obviously, I had a kid out of wedlock, and they never crossed either of our minds to abort the baby. I mean, obviously, had she made the decision, I would have at least liked to have a conversation about it beforehand.
At least.
But at the end of the day, like it's not something I'm super knowledgeable. I don't know all the stats on it. So I would hate to say something and for somebody to, well, you forgot about this situation, you forget about this, you forget about that. Like, the craziest ones you always hear is like this 13-year-old girl who gets raped by the stranger. Like, why should she have to keep the baby?
Right.
And I 100% agree. Like, there's no
yeah.
fucking way she should have to keep the kid.
No, that's ridiculous. Obviously, that's an extenuating circumstance that hopefully we would all agree on. I'm sure there's people who don't.
No, they don't. And those
Right.
are the hard ones to defend. It's always like the craziest of the crazy on both sides of it that you're reluctant to defend the party because those are the people that come to mind.
Right.
And, I mean, there's a lot of nuanced, nice people in the middle. And, like, I realize a lot of these issues, maybe not the abortion one specifically, but a lot of them have a ton of nuance, and it's not so black and white and evil versus good. And I don't know. Sometimes it kind of made me sick the other day when I was watching college football, and Trump had a campaign, and it was just about how Kamala is for they and like wants the transgenders in the military and wants them getting surgery. And I was like, this is fucking insane.
It is crazy.
I don't really care whatever you want to do with your body, gay, straight, transgender, but like that campaign may be extremely uncomfortable. Like, why are we actively against people who want to identify as they? Like, it doesn't really impact me,
right? Like, why would it even really matter? I guess.
And don't get me wrong, Kamala or whatever, like, also like a lot of hers are just targeted towards anti-Trump. Tell me what you do well. Don't tell me what the other person does shitty.
Well, that's really what it comes down to, is just like a fucking shitty flinging negatives at the other person instead of, explaining what you're going to do well. It's more or less about how they've failed and what they've been unable to do. It's interesting having a candidate that's already VP versus a candidate that was already president. I don't know that we've seen that before, probably. I don't really know my history that well, but it's something that we'll keep an eye on, and we don't really have a fucking boat in this race, either one of us, but we'll keep an eye on it.
One of them's got to win.
Yeah, one of them will have to win, and it'll probably be a fucking disaster how it all turns out. But
storm the Capitol again?
That would be interesting to see. I wouldn't mind seeing crazy shit happen. I'm never against crazy fucking shit happening. I'm not going to be involved.
As long as it doesn't happen in Lockport, like, let it happen.
Right, and it's unlikely that it's going to happen in Lockport.
The epicenter of crazy.
What time is it right now?
I got about 7-8 minutes.
I mean, we can call it, dude. I don't know.
No, we're not calling it. We're just going to keep calling it like it is for 7 or 8 minutes.
Sounds good. I was wondering maybe what we could do moving forward, being that we took a week off, to maybe jumpstart this thing. Like, I think we got to start racking our brains to maybe come up with some innovative ideas to not necessarily change the format or anything like that, but just bring something to the table that's kind of new and exciting. I mean, when you get to that point when you're almost at 20 episodes, I think it might be a good time to sit down and really think about some new ideas and some different things that we might be able to bring to the show. I don't really have anything offhand, but something I'd like to think about. If you personally have anything that you might want to see, or just ideas for us moving forward, I'm not opposed to opening things up, trying something different.
Getting some callers in, or does that not? How does that work?
Definitely could work. That's totally possible.
What about a chat? Little chat function?
That would be cool too. Going live would probably be the way to facilitate that, which we could totally do. That would be more than doable. So we'll think about it.
What about having Trump or Harris on before the election?
I would love to do that.
Rogan wasn't able to do it. Like, maybe, hey, this is your alternative route. Like, we will accommodate you. We'll let you come to Lockport.
I wish we could do that. That would be amazing.
Have you tried?
And I have not tried. Anything that would boost me up would be great. I would talk to either one of them, and I would be happy to do it. I would even do my research for them.
Do you feel like you'd be swinging the election, though?
Probably.
Yeah, that'd be...
all 180 people would probably vote for whoever I had on, which is why it would be important to have both candidates on. So I think that's the way to go.
I think it'd be really cool that you roast both candidates, and whoever had better jokes in the roast, or whoever handled the jokes more gracefully, like, that tells you how they're going to be under pressure.
Well, we know who that would be, I think.
It would definitely be her.
I think it would be Trump.
His roast might be good, but like when they actually did a roast of Trump, or he was
they did
on
do a roast of Trump. Yeah,
his facial expressions did not change once, and like it was kind of funny. Like, oh my goodness, this guy takes himself so seriously he can't laugh at anything. But man, he's got some good one-liners. Like, they're not what you want from a president, and they're certainly uncomfortable. But like when I was watching that Mr. McMahon doc, and they showed Trump, like, oh my god, like he really sounds like a wrestler promoter.
And he does, even in his political speeches, which is what's nuts about it. Like, he says wild shit that you wouldn't expect. I wish they would have done another debate. I didn't get to catch the first one, but I feel like that was not something that was really focused on this time around, unless I missed it, which is very possible. But it's always good to see him go head to head.
I feel like he's not a very well-rounded speaker, though, and honestly, like,
he's just a shit talker.
I've never heard her, so I'm not going to sit there and judge, but based on what I've been hearing second or third hand, she's not really polished. It doesn't feel like we've had a polished, cool, like, born to be a politician since Obama, and I'm not talking like what he actually was as a president.
No,
I'm
but
talking like as a
presentation,
candidate.
right? Yeah. Like, he was just esteemed. Like, he had prestige.
He's cool, though.
He's someone you could be proud of as the American leader. Like, he was cool. He spoke well. He had a swagger about him. It's like you wouldn't be embarrassed if people knew he was the guy for your country. You know what I mean? Like, whether you liked him or not, you had to admit he had charisma, he had a presence. How did we end up in this boat?
And, I say this jokingly, and it was more relevant with Biden, not Harris, but I always would say, like, if I had to have somebody drive me to the airport or watch my kids while I go grocery shopping, is this person capable of it? And honestly, with Biden and Trump, like, I wouldn't be comfortable with it.
I wouldn't
Which
either.
is a pretty fucking low bar that I'm not comfortable you watching my kids for an hour and a half, like, and then you're running the country. Now, granted, I understand that there's also a lot of people who are involved in those, but, like, that's fucking embarrassing. And I say this as someone who's ignorant and doesn't really follow politics too much, but that's just my baseline assumption. Like, we can't do better.
It's a fair point. You would think that we would be able to drudge up some better candidates. It's just turned into a complete shit show. I mean, when the one guy has Rogan, who's a dolt, pothead midget, and the other girl has Beyonce, who's, I don't give a fuck. She sucks. And
her fans are obnoxious too because they're
horrible.
overly protective.
100%. The Bayhive or whatever you fucking call it, they're losers anyway. Like, when that's the... I don't know. It just we've come to a weird point in pop culture where it's just getting fucking crazy.
Time out. If you, and maybe I'll give you some time to think about this, then we'll wrap it up. But if there's one besides Tom Brady, because he's the obvious answer,
perfect guy.
If there's one person in sports or pop culture who you legitimately think would be a good president, and you'd be proud of to call our president, like, who would it be for you?
If it wasn't TB12, which, like you said, is the obvious answer, and I do think he could make a run if he wanted to, especially with how things have changed. I mean, this sounds dumb, but I think The Rock could be great at president. If we're going to go with Trump, like, I think The Rock can speak. He can talk his ass off. He's a nice, family-oriented guy. He's done a lot of family movies. He's physically imposing. He's lived the American dream. He's well-connected, so, he could be plug and play in that regard. I don't know. I don't know if it could happen or not, but, like, I could see that, or maybe like a Will Smith.
I think Will Smith.
Well, he kind of fucked himself.
Yeah,
if it wasn't for that incident, maybe.
I mean, Denzel, maybe. I feel like he's like a cool. The guy, he's probably not very well known to your fans, but I always think like he would be exceptional. Is Steve Kerr? He played basketball with Michael Jordan. He coaches Steph Curry.
The Warriors,
he's like been very successful, and he's very well connected. And his dad was something political, and he ended up getting murdered in Beirut, I want to say.
Oh shit!
Or I probably pronounced it
Beirut.
Pronunciation. But he's like he's like very positive. Like, if you listen to him like going to the sideline, he's not like screaming at guys. He's just telling them what they did well and what they could have worked on, and just that calm demeanor. He's also very intelligent too. Like, I actually, like, as much as this was kind of a silly question, like, I actually think he's every single quality you'd want in a coach and a president. And he's very well spoken. He's empathetic. He's been highly successful. He's well connected to all these people. He's just people who aren't familiar that read up on him, like, you'd be highly impressed. And he's actually the USA basketball coach now too.
Interesting.
So that's the next level, is president and USA basketball coach.
Yeah, right. Then USA basketball. I think that with Trump having kicked the doors down, like, he wasn't even a politician and had a checkered past.
Still not.
True, and he won. So, I mean, that definitely opens up the floodgates. I wouldn't mind seeing somebody like The Rock or Tom Brady get in the mix. I mean, if Tom Brady runs, that might get my ass out to the polls. I don't know what he would run as, but, I mean, I would feel like I wasn't a good fan if I didn't at least go and vote for someone who I hold in such high regard.
We live in Buffalo, which is like a division rival, but, like, do people actually hate Brady? Because I don't feel like people usually do. I feel like he's revered and respected.
Not here.
Here's a bad example. He's owned the Bills for 20 years. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, overall, like, you don't hear a lot of people, oh, I fucking hate Tom Brady. Tom Brady's a horrible guy. Like, there's never really been any... I mean, the cheating allegation was stupid. Like, if you actually look at the evidence, he didn't really do anything wrong. But he's never, like, been abusive or got arrested or had a drug problem.
That's
or
true.
Said something racist. He's never hit a woman. He's never said something homophobic. I'm not saying he doesn't do all this behind the scenes.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, he may. But
I'm just saying,
to never get caught and to never have any allegations pop up in that many years of being in the limelight and being the top dog in the NFL... That's really fucking crazy.
It's the same with fucking LeBron. You look at how many people are just getting Me Too left and right for sick things they did throughout the year.
Scandals.
And neither's guys. And they're in the spotlight since they were like a young age. LeBron was 17. Tom Brady was, 21 or 22? Like, think how much fucked up dumb shit we did then. And for them to survive this long without even the smallest hint of a scandal. LeBron's worst thing he ever did was leaving Cleveland for Miami.
And that's not bad.
That's like me going to college at Oswego instead of staying at UB.
Right. That's not bad at all. I mean, that needed to happen, really. I mean, the way it went down, I guess you could maybe.
But it's such a nitpicking thing to hate about somebody.
Yeah, it's not like he sexually assaulted somebody. I mean, that's a very low. That's low on the totem pole. So
sexual assault or leaving?
Both. Maybe LeBron James could be someone that could run for president.
He's polarizing to people, but for stupid reasons. Like, I think he's too polarizing, but like if you listen to people who don't like him, it's never rational. It's, oh, he hopped teams, or oh, he's a diva, or oh, he's a drama. It's never like, oh, I actually think he's a bad father or something.
I don't really have a good reason for not liking LeBron at all.
Few people do, and I didn't like him for a while.
Yeah, I mean, they're, again, like you pointed out here, and it's the same thing with Brady, like, never really did anything wrong, and it would be easy to do something wrong, especially because you're under that microscope. Like, I don't know, you got to give them both credit for that, because, man, a lot of people have been getting torn down lately who have been in similar positions, and no one's really in a position like those two guys, and there's really been nothing that you can really say that's legitimate that you could tear them down with.
So here's something we're going to not tear down. The people in the comments, I want you to tell us which celebrity you think would be the best president, and then we'll break down some of those candidates if we would vote for them or not.
I like that.
We can even do like a fucking bracket where we have 8 and have to go against them.
I like that. We're going to need the engagement this week. We're coming out of a cold week. I don't know what to expect. I do want to say thank you to the Plains for your continued support, assuming that you do that. We're happy to be back here. This is something that's going to keep rolling. We're only just getting started up in here. So this is episode 19. My name's codeezie. This is Eamon. We'll be back for the 20th episode. That's going to be a big one. So make sure you tune in. Your engagement, your likes, your subscriptions, so on and so forth are very much appreciated this week. And we're not going anywhere. Last week was a fluke. We needed a bye week. We did a full NFL season. We get a bye week.
We earned a bye week. We were the number 1 seed. You don't play the first round of the playoffs.
100% true. So thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Eamon, it's always a pleasure. I know you got to roll.
Pleasure's all mine.
Get the fuck out of here.
It's been real.
All right, later.